Hello, Customer Marketing Summit. I'm Eric Calderon. As you stated, I spearhead customer lifecycle marketing at Qualia. I don't know if you've enjoyed the summit as much as I have. I'm hoping to give you a proper send-off by covering blended lifecycle marketing strategies. Okay, so some of the things we'll cover today is the sudden rise in hybrid B2B purchasing. I'll also cover some examples of how we did that at Atlassian. And then I'll close you out with some strategic best practices on, if you're considering implementing it, what to consider. All right, so a couple things about myself. So I've been in the demand gen game for about 8 years. Before Qualia, I worked at Atlassian, worked at various stages of companies, pretty much done it all. Recently, when I joined Atlassian, I pivoted to customer lifecycle marketing. And I'm here to stay. Some of my side hustles are I do graphic design on the side, and I also am a Marketo Ops and RevOps consultant freelance. At Qualia, we're on a mission to power real estate's digital transformation, and we're trying to do that by making the home buying process as simple, secure, and enjoyable as possible. If you've ever purchased a home, you know how complex that can be. And we're looking to digitize it and make the process as transparent as possible. A random fun fact about myself. So I had the pleasure of playing against LeBron James in high school. And this is how that matchup looked like. And I am not LeBron in this photo. Another fun fact. I am addicted to cheesecake. If there's any way you want to get it, so at every company, I get a cheesecake for my birthday, I get a cheesecake for a celebration. So if you want to get on my good side, there's the key. There's the key. A couple facts about Qualia. So Qualia processes over 1 million U.S. real estate transactions every year. Over 500,000 title agents, lenders, or real estate agents have closed on Qualia's platform, and we're only growing. So back to the serious stuff. So what is hybrid purchasing, and why are we seeing an increase in adoption? First and foremost, B2B buyers have been clear for some time now, and they're even more clear now. They expect both self-service and in-person interactions across their entire buyer's journey. Expectations internally have shifted as well. Sellers, expect more flexibility in how they work. And then lastly, hybrid strategies are more flexible, scalable, and can be more profitable for your organization. So a little bit more about, the buyer expectations. So B2B buyers, like I said, they want more. They want more channels, they want more convenience, and at the end of the day, they want a more personalized experience. If you think about it from a seller perspective, a McKinsey article, The Future of B2B Sales is Hybrid, stated that hybrid selling is expected to be the most dominant sales strategy by 2024 for the reasons I just mentioned. So not only do your customers want it, but it's also more efficient. Hybrid sales drive up to 50% more revenue for organizations versus a traditional sales model. I think it's no-brainer, right? And in addition to that, larger enterprise, more than 90% of enterprises plan to sustain the changes that they made to their Salesforce structure over the pandemic in the last year to enable hybrid. So everybody's jumping on board. So what is a hybrid strategy? What does it look like? How can I do it? So at Atlassian, our bread and butter was our flywheel, self-service. That's how we started, and that's what we specialize in. So essentially from not aware, from a stranger all the way to a paying customer, the entire purchasing journey is completely self-service. And I'll walk through some examples on how we do that. And then you have high touch, which has your usual suspects, marketing, inbound sales, ADs, AEs. So we call it the flywheel effect. So essentially in its simplest form, the flywheel effect is it's essentially a series of small wins that accumulate over time, creating momentum, and that continuously grows your business. The flywheel is also about removing friction and applying force. But what I mean by that is you're essentially creating a self-service purchase flow and using these various levers to make the wheel spin faster. And some of those channels may be SEO and product messaging, programmatic nurtures, things like that. And the actual concept was based on a book from Jim Collins, Good to Great. And the gist is your customers are your best salespeople. We all know that. If you make them happy, they'll tell their friends. And if you make your products easy to learn about and purchase, those friends will buy it. So I love that. And if you think about the flywheel, it has three major components: attract, engage, and most importantly, delight. So from an attract perspective, you're essentially drawing your customers to you with helpful content and making that, most importantly, make that content as easily as possible to discover. And you could do that by gaining their attention on SEO, social media, targeted advertising, virtual and in-person events. And then now that you've made that good impression, and it's important to make it easy for prospects to learn about your products on their own terms, in their own time, and ultimately purchase it self-serve. And a way you can kind of accomplish that is via nurture campaigns, free trials, programmatic onboard and activation campaigns, and self-service purchase flows. So now that you've made them your customers, now it's time to delight them and make them advocates. So it's essentially, you want to design your product to be as easy as possible to ramp up and onboard and get started. Your goal here is to turn users into fans. And remember, if you make them happy, they will tell their friends. So you can accomplish this by offering documentation, knowledge bases, soliciting feedback, and as previously mentioned, acting on it. So this is a visual of what the flywheel looks like in action. Essentially, you're taking from attract to delight, you're taking promoters, or you're taking strangers and turning them into promoters. So our approach to the flywheel at Atlassian is we forked the funnel. So we thought from not awareness to MQL. We thought of them similarly, and then we forked it at the point of conversion. Oh, that looks weird. So essentially, you could serve the same content that's segmented either by product, by use case, by persona, and target the same accounts, and then get them to your most compelling point, which is MQL, and then fork the funnel and either send them self-serve and hand them off to your sales team. So to double click on those, this is an example of how we built our self-serve buyer's journey. So as you can see here, we have definitions by stage, we have goals by stage, and we have key metrics to influence by stage. So when you look at the definitions, the goals here are essentially to move them to the next stage of the buyer's journey, activate the next feature, give us their credit card. And then if you look at we're looking at things like conversion rates to the next stage, close rates, churn. And then if you think about it from a high touch perspective, actually from to the point they become an MQL, most of the activities that are occurring in a self-serve, if we're tracking it from a self-serve perspective, we're doing that from a high touch perspective. The only changes that you'll see here is that we're now considering if they've responded to a sales outreach email as an MQL, and if they filled out a contact us form. Outside of that, we're tracking in-product behavior and then activating and informing our sales team on that. And then obviously you go through your traditional sales funnel after that. But the important thing here to note is that you can do both without completely disrupting the customer experience and also optimizing and growing your business at a large scale. So what are some of the best practices? So this is one of my favorite quotes from one of our former heads of product marketing. It's simple: know the customer and show them that you know them. What does that mean? So, the way my approach to here is do the work. Start by doing the work. Know your customers on a very intimate level. And you can do that by creating clear ideal customer profiles, having personas defined, and have those built out for each journey. Have clearly defined stages, assign goals. You want to know what's working, you want to know what's not working, you want to know what's resonating. That you want to do that at each stage of the journey and for each business unit. So for me at Atlassian, I supported their ITSM business, so that was 4 products within that business. So there was a lot of moving pieces and a lot of complexity. So the more you centralize and standardize your tracking, the more you can shift your focus to another area. This one was important. Creating a single source of truth for all customer data. So I served on a project called Project Fusion at Atlassian. So we were just acquiring businesses like it was a hot sale. And obviously with those acquisitions come different Salesforce instances, come different marketing automations and marketing platforms. So Project Fusion was essentially, the goal was to take 4 Marketo instances, I think 5 Salesforce instances, and a couple other marketing email platforms and centralize that across, I think, 13 businesses. So it was a large project. I was honored to be on it, but yeah, it just showed me the complexity of getting a single view of your customer. And as an evolution to that project, we started, now that we had a lot of data in a central place, how do we get everything into one place? So the goal is to filter by an account. You can see all the leads in there, and from an omni-channel perspective, you can see what they did in the product, you can see what they did on social media and on your website. I hope they got that done, but that was a very, very business critical, and it can unlock a lot of capabilities. And then once you have that data, create the reporting infrastructure to track, measure, and learn and scale from your programs. And then now that you have all that, how do you show them? You know, it's nothing outside of what we normally do, personalization. So, you know, now that you have your content, you have your ICPs, map those accordingly, and build that out throughout your buyer's journey. And in order to deliver a personalized experience, you could use some of these sources. So obviously you know your customer, you have your ideal customer profile, you're tracking their campaign engagement. And, you know, this is one that I'm trying to, you know, continue to build my muscle on, is tracking what they're doing in the product from a marketing view, and also being able to tell a compelling story and act on it. So this is the omni-channel ecosystem that I had to work with. What you'll see in purple are the channels that I primarily focus on. Whenever I join a new org, my primary focus is unlocking own channels. Obviously, there's not a ton of spend that I need to commit to, and I can ramp up without, you know, having the C-suite or anybody uncomfortable with the amount of budget I'm spending. You know, still trying to figure things out. So email's pretty obvious. I've been doubling down on in-product and in-app from an engagement perspective. You know, my primary focus was trying to drive more trials and demos, but now I'm shifting my focus to more product adoption. I've partnered, you know, examples of partnering with customer support. We scrub tickets. So whenever we have a new product launch, we scrub tickets for whatever the pain point that launch is addressing, and we use that to create a hyper-targeted audience. Sales, obviously, intimate relationship with them, events. And then at Atlassian, one of our major initiatives was database expansion, so adding more key personas from our target accounts to our database. And TechTarget was a great partner for that on numerous ways. And this is omni-channel distribution in action. So it all starts with starting with a defined segment of your target customers. And then thereafter, we are targeting them with paid ads. And in parallel, we have email touch points that are promoting the same asset. And then once they land on the actual landing page, we have this little pop-up toaster. So all this has been defined. This is a nurture on multiple channels. So this is the next asset that we've defined as the next asset to consume in the nurture series. And then if you think about it from an enterprise perspective, this is an example of our continuous nurture strategy. So essentially, we're acquiring a new lead with a high-value asset based on, you know, several filters. That lead is now added to a limited awareness nurture. And then we're tracking the type of assets and content that they're engaging with. And then we have a series of product-specific nurtures that they would be enrolled in based on their campaign engagement. And then they would MQL after they exceeded a 30-point threshold. So you've seen this slide a million times. I consider myself as the intersection between all these teams. I developed a strategy. They're essentially service providers, but with perspective. And I'm just kind of bouncing around to try to execute on my strategy. I have this up just to, you know, show how many teams we work with and how we are all working, you know, they all working with me directly to some capacity. But the most important thing is that, you know, there's different nuances and dynamics. You know, give them a seat at the table. Make them feel respected, seen, heard, and understood, and you would be amazed by how they're willing to go to bat for you and go to war for you. And I try to do that on a daily basis. So I want to kind of end with some flywheel best practices. So these are some of the things that we learned at Atlassian. To start with, just let them buy. Good products sell themselves, so doing things like enabling self-education, ungating and removing barriers to your information, being transparent about your pricing online, and essentially creating an Amazon-like purchase process are things that you can do to win from a self-serve perspective. Price for volume and consistency. Your entry-level pricing should be low to remove friction. The goal here is to get them inside your product using it and have the confidence that you've built a great product and they'll adopt it. Build a network of partners. So at Atlassian, our indirect sales team is obviously global, and they accounted for 1/3 of our revenue. 1/3 of a few billion, that's a pretty good channel. And also what you'll see is that this becomes a self-sustaining flywheel within itself. Obviously there's people supporting that, but it creates a predictable business for sure. And this one, I feel like we've all been saying it. That's what this is about, but I just need to call it out again. Providing an online forum for users to ask questions and exchange tips is a low-cost way to keep people engaged. You know, I do it all the time. You know, if you think about low-level support requests, most of those get addressed by the community. So it's definitely a high-value asset. Don't fall for the enterprise trap. What I mean by this is the price you pay for focusing on big contracts to the exclusion of small customers is the loss of volume, consistency, and predictability. I will say that again. Volume, consistency, and predictability. That's what the flywheel is all about. You interrupt that, it's to your detriment. And then lastly, continue to diversify your products. At the end of the day, continue to release great products that your customers are passionate about. And also, if you have the ability, build out your partner ecosystem, open it up, allow developers to develop apps for you, do the work for you, and it will be fruitful, I promise. And then lastly, thank you. I want to close this out by, I always have to remind myself about this. You know, I feel like as the amazing, motivated, and passionate professionals that we are, we fly at a high altitude and such a high velocity that we forget to land the jet and appreciate the things we've accomplished and how far we've come. So I want to end by, let's celebrate ourselves. Let's celebrate the fact that we're here in person with such amazing individuals. And thank you for your time. Oh, I got questions.
Hello, hello.
Thank you, thank you.
And I just want to say you haven't paid me yet for your questions. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You paid for this event. Thank you. Okay, so Eric, thank you so much. I think that your talk and like this allowing us to take a step back and look at this flywheel that we all can create, the life cycle experience that we all can create, and how we can nurture customers at scale was the perfect way to like think about everything that we learned and like talk about it in a scalable way, right?
Yeah, so that was the goal here. I knew that this wouldn't be directly relatable to your discipline or your role, but if you can come to the table with this type of context, you're in a powerful position.
Right.
Yeah.
And
tell me something I don't know. You know?
Right. Yeah. So some questions that came in. Those graphics that you showed us about what assets are coming to play where in nurture campaigns, how do you communicate what those journeys are to your team? Do you keep those available as like a list that people can look through? I imagine
the emails and the content themselves.
Yeah, like the lifecycle campaigns.
Yeah. So we have a central repository for all in sales enablement assets. A Confluence page. And then within each Confluence page, what we do is for every new launch, whether it's nurture, onboard and activation, product launch, we have a sales enablement toolkit. And in there, you'll have links to the actual emails or preview links. You'll have speaking points and data points, and then you'll have a little snippet that you can add to your communications. So that's how we enable.
Awesome. So the next question is, how is lifecycle marketing different from omni-channel marketing?
I will say that it's not different. Lifecycle marketing is a strategy, it's an approach, and omni-channel is a tool you can use to execute it. in my opinion. Very, very good question. So I start with so at Atlassian, I had the benefit of the first product I worked on, it was in EAP, so early release. It was a new product, so I got to experience that from initial launch to maturity. And what we did is, as a part of the launch, I was in meetings with customer support and product. So every month we would look at the feedback from the customers and see how that's impacting our launch. That's one way. The other way is capturing all that feedback, mapping it back to some of our key initiatives. So if there's a product launch, typically for product launches, we do a survey that's directly tied to the features, and we use that to create assets and use that in our sales and marketing materials. That's how we integrate some customer feedback. And I'm trying to think of another way. We think of it at every stage of the process. So every new campaign, we think about what's the purpose behind it, who's the target audience, what type of response do we want from the market on it, and we have goals around like the type of feedback we're expecting. If we're not getting that feedback, it's flagged immediately, and the Tiger team is formed.